In this YouTube video, I'm going to expand upon the APEX, the task counter thing that aggregates all the tasks and creates invoices. So it aggregates the tasks for the opportunities table, the users table or object, the accounts table or object, the contacts or the leads table or objects, and basically it works with I'll explain it, but it works with notifications too. So now when you assign the task to a user, you can have a notification appear, and you could also assign it to queues too. So this will make a little bit more sense in a little bit. So I'm going to go over to my Salesforce, and I guess I'll just open up my developer console. So basically here's all the code here, and I basically did the same kind of thing I did when I added the contacts, except now I added accounts and I added users, the user object. So I basically just would copy this block of code, and then I repeated it for the leads, because and what the column I did was who ID here. So if you go to your setup and you go to your object manager and you scroll down to task, and the fields, basically the who ID here, which is the name, it's a lookup for either the contact or the lead table. So I basically just repeated this code, this APEX code, and I did 00Q for the leads, because that's the prefix for the record ID for the leads, and 003 is the prefix ID for the contact IDs. So I basically just copied that down, and then I also did this with accounts, but for accounts the column is called WhatId instead of WhoID, because on the tasks object they have a WhatId lookup, which looks up all these other objects. So it looks up account, opportunity, product, campaign, order, and all these other columns. So basically what I did for the account? Yeah, for the account, I basically just replaced all the code with WhatId instead, and then 001, because that references the prefix for accounts. And I did the same thing for users. So for down here, I basically did instead of WhatId and WhoID, I did the OwnerId for this one, because you can scroll up here and there's another lookup for user, calendar, and groups. So basically for this one I replaced WhoID and WhatId with OwnerId, and I did 005, which is the user lookup, and I just basically I just replaced all the variables with just a reference to the user object or the account object. And here's all the code. I'm just going to scroll from the top to the bottom so you can get all the code. And you'll see why this is pretty useful at the end. And it loads really quickly too still. So basically that's all the code, and it's basically the same kind of thing. It basically just looks up all the task records, and it does a lookup versus the records in the other respective objects based on the prefix, 00Q, 001, 003, and 005. So in addition to this code, I also have triggers, which you go to new and APEX trigger for this one, in addition to the other ones. So the other ones are APEX triggers and separate safes, and it has before insert. So this just makes sure that the number of task column, so each of these objects, I basically went into object manager and setup. So the account table, the contact table, the lead table, and the user table, they all have custom columns. So basically, for example, you go to users, field and relationships, you press new, and you select number as the type, and then you just type in this name here. You type in number of open tasks, and then click save and make it visible. which I show you how to do in my earlier Apex videos. And the field name will just be number of open tasks. So you create this column, which is a number column, in the account, the user, the leads, and the contacts objects. And then once you do that, you basically do an Apex trigger for account, and you make sure that it's 0 before the insert. So basically it just ensures that there's not a null value there, so it makes that 0. You do that same thing for user, you do the same thing for contact, and you do the same thing for lead. Because if it's null, then it has an issue inserting the value, and then if it's 0, then it doesn't have an issue inserting the value. So you do 0 for all of them, because it needs to be 0 before this can insert whatever the value is of the current number of tasks. So basically how this works is like I'll create a new account right now, and the account will just be called like account 1, and I'll click save. So whenever I create a new account, the before insert that I showed you, it automatically makes this 0 because currently there are no open tasks for it. If you watch my process builder Apex video, when you import certain accounts or contacts or leads, you could have the process builder auto assign tasks, any number of tasks based on any of the number of the columns that you're importing. So it doesn't necessarily have to be 0, but the before insert in that case would also still work because it makes it 0 before the process builder assigns the tasks, which would aggregate up. So basically there's 0 tasks for this account. And if you go to tasks now, you could assign the task to a user. I'll just do email. You could do it to a contact and to an account. So you could assign it to basically all of these, or only one of them. You could just assign it to a person, or you could assign it to a person and a contact, or a person and a contact and account, or a person and an account. So it'll aggregate separately in each of the different tables. So basically I'm just creating this task, and the subject will just be like email whatever. You could just type whatever you want here and click save, and that's the task that was just created. So now this account has 1 task, and then this contact we assigned it to, it has 4 tasks because they already had 3 tasks. And then what was it, a contact, account, and a user. So basically my user, you can't put a user object on your nav bar, but if you go to setup and you scroll to users, you can click users, and this could be a quick way to see all the open tasks for your users. If you click edit, and you basically just add in the number of open tasks here to this view, and then click save, you can basically see all of the users in your Salesforce, and you can see the number of open tasks for each of them that needs to be done. So it's a quick way to keep track of everything that everyone needs to do. So if you go to your contacts now, and here is the task I just did. So if I check this off, that finishes the task for the contact. It finishes the task for the account because it's the same task. And it also, if you go to your user and refresh, now the number of open tasks for that user is 0. So when you create a task, I'll just do it again, go to new task, and just type whatever you want, and I'll just do the same contact and the same account, click save. So now this account has 1 task, and this contact again has 4 tasks, and then my user will have 1 task. So I'll just do it twice so you can see it added again. So now this contact has 5 tasks, and let me just add this one with a number. So basically now this account has 2 tasks, and now my user has 2 tasks. So basically if I click on the account and I check off both of these as completed, now that account has 0 tasks, and so does the user. You could assign them just to the user, or the user in the contact, as I said. So what's particularly cool is when you assign activities, or when you assign tasks to users, you can enable the task notifications for a user. So basically, notice how like the notifications wasn't really popping up for the user, but if you go to I actually have it enabled. I'll demonstrate it now because I already have it enabled, and then I'll show you how to do it. So basically, you go to new task, and I'll just do like call me, and then the contacts, and I'll do an account. And see, I was setting the reminder for like later on, like 3 p.m. So if I set it earlier than now, like say now it's 2:26, if I do 2 p.m. and I click save, I'll get a notification pop up. It says call me due date, because my notification settings are set up so they pop up after the time already passed. So basically now I know that work was just assigned to me. And now obviously if I go to like the users, like anyone else who wants to check to see what work was assigned to me can validate that work was assigned to me. And I mean, I could look at this object and see the number of open tasks, and also see the account owner is me, and I could work on the account, and I could check it off when I'm done. And that only had a problem because of some other, you could ignore that, but if I go to do that again, that won't happen. So click that. So that work is done now. So you could keep track of if work is assigned to you using the task thing, and also you'll have like a visual column reference for the tasks. And I mean, being that all these objects like accounts, leads, opportunities, and contacts, these are all just objects basically. You could technically create a custom object, and you could kind of mimic the account fields on them. So like say if you go to like your account and you go to fields and relationships, so I mean basically all you really need is just a new custom object, and you'll be able to basically just reference that custom object in your Apex code. So let me open up my Apex code. So basically if I go over here, like this entire Apex code is basically based on the task object, and I'm just using like the who ID or the what ID. So you can basically just change around like who ID, what ID, and user ID to match like the custom object that you create, and then you would be able to basically pull that record, and you could have like the task, like different task levels. So notice how like when you go to your, let's go to this task over here. So when you go to your tasks, they have like mark complete, and then I guess when you go to your, let me go to like an opportunity, and let's say you have like an opportunity, the opportunity has multiple levels. So Salesforce has in your custom app creation, which I show you in Salesforce for Dummies Part 2 video, you can basically create a custom app, and then you could assign a custom object to that custom map, which I show you how to do in my, I think my first Apex video. I show you how to do that. So basically you could create a custom app. I show that in my my first Apex video, and you can assign custom tabs to your custom app, and that custom tab could be based on a custom object. And this custom tab, you can add like a path with all the different values here using a pick list. Pick list I show in the formulas video. So basically, if you choose like a compact layout for your custom app, instead of these being drop downs, you could have sub tabs under tabs. So you could have a sub tab called like progress of the work, and then you could have prospecting, qualification, needs analysis as all the different sub tabs under that tab. And then when you select each of the stages of the task that you got assigned, you can modify the Apex code to basically generate like invoices, because basically I have the Apex code set up, if you watch my last video, to generate invoices when they reach a certain stage. So for the accounts, when the task is marked as completed, it goes to invoices. So basically, let me go to tasks, and I'll just create a new task, and I'll just do like email and accounts, and I'll assign it to a user. So notice like my invoices currently, the last one was 227. So when I go to accounts and I check off this one, so I mark this as complete, and now that creates invoices at 231. So I have it set up so it's based on that number I just typed in. This one is half of that, and then this one is 0.2 of that. So instead of creating this is a custom tab that I made on custom object invoices. Instead of sending these invoices over here, you could basically send them over to, like, you can make like multiple custom tabs, and you can name them like prospecting, qualification, or stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And then when you finish the task, or you select a certain stage of a task, you could have it whatever sent over to whatever stage you need it to be sent over to, instead of just generating it under invoices. So you could manage the workflow, and also the users will know when each of the tasks are assigned to them as they're assigned, and they'll also have a reference column. And I mean, if you name the task like account task or lead task, then they know where they need to go in order to do the work. And I mean, this entire time, if you want like a quicker way to see like which users have which task, you could just go to setup users, and you can see how many tasks are currently assigned to a particular person. And basically, like I'll just do like a new task, right? Or yeah, I'll do like a new task. Basically, to the person, you could just be like, you could like assign and be like, do account task upload, and then you could assign it to a user. You could assign it to a contact. So you could kind of use the contacts. You could create like a contact record that could represent another user. So if you want to just assign a task to 2 people, you could kind of create a, like, you could just make another person on the team a contact, and then you can make another person on the team an account technically, and you could basically assign the work to 3 people using this. And then you would also be able to keep track of all the work that's getting assigned in this users tab. So that's why that's useful. And then I mean, also with invoice, like with like how it generates when it's done. So if I go to like accounts, and I'll select this, so now do account task upload. So I check this, so now that's done. So that sends it over to the next stage, which is invoices. So that generates that, and I show that code in my create invoices with Apex code. So not only can you assign tasks to multiple people and get notifications each time the task is assigned to them once it reaches a certain time, but you can also track it across different stages. So you could create like records in another object based on it reaching a certain stage. And I mean, this also works with importing data too. So basically you can delegate like the entire workflow and manage different stages, and also generate like reports and manage inventory and create dashboards as the work flows through all the different stages too. So I mean, if you combine like all like the uploads and the process builder and the workflow rules and the notifications and how many tasks you could assign, you could basically manage like very complicated processes using this. And if you want to enable the notifications, you could basically go here and then scroll down to your task on your object manager, and then you go to page layouts, task layout. So you could drag down reminder set here and then put that there. And I mean, you could click some of these different things like number, for example, and you can make it a required field if you press that wrench there. So you could work in like required fields and stuff. So basically, you just drag down reminder set here, and you can get like reminders for the notifications. And then if you go to your setup, well, obviously you have to click save on that page too. And then if you go to setup and you go to activity settings, you click over here, and you can basically check enable activity reminders. So you get reminders, and enable user control over task assignment notification, lets users control whether and how they're notified when someone assigns them a task. So you get like email notifications for tasks too, if you want. And then you could allow users to relate multiple contacts to tasks and events. So if you check this, and you click submit. So now when I go to, let me see if that enabled now. So I could go over to contacts, and let me just, let's say 1500 has 0 tasks. So I'll go to tasks, and I'll create a new task and assign it to call contacts. So you could select multiple contacts to assign tasks to. So you could basically assign the work to an unlimited amount of people on your team, and then you could select the account, click save. So if you go to your contacts now, it only assigned the task to like one person on this. So I guess there are some like limitations if you like enable multiple contacts, but the task still got assigned to this person. And I guess you just have to like work around that to enable for multiple. But I mean, if you assign it to like an account, a contact, and the other, like the opportunity or the user, you could kind of like just make different people that way. And then if you go to like setup, maybe I'll like, it's not really necessary to do that. So Salesforce notifications, and you click over here. So you could enable in-app notifications for like the mobile app and the Lightning experience, and then click save. So that'll make sure like all like your notifications appear when you get assigned work. And yeah, I mean, I guess in my next video I'll probably create like a custom object, and like I'll demonstrate like the different like statuses, and instead of just feeding everything into invoices. And I mean, obviously if you assign the task to an account, a contact, or opportunity, and or a lead, and then like a user, if you check off that single task, then it checks it off for every single one of them. So you could basically name like the custom objects instead of like accounts, contacts, and leads. You could name it as like the person you're working with, and then you could just like check each of the users also. So basically pretty simple, and thank you for watching my